I always.
Yeah. Okay, welcome everyone to our town council meeting. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. When the sick was up, you couldn't help it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Roll call, Kate.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Thank you. We have our audience of citizens now. If there's anyone that wishes to speak, now would be the time. I got it.
That invisible ink again, huh?
And we do have, sir, come on up.
Work your way through the crowd.
Yeah, fight your way to the podium.
Good evening.
Hi.
Peter Friedrich, 2253 Berlin Turnpike.
Welcome.
Over the past several years, quite a number of neighboring towns and cities throughout Connecticut have made a serious but easily avoidable mistake. Mistake which can have grave consequences for some very vulnerable and marginalized people all the way on the other side of the world. What if I warned you that the town of Berlin may be at risk of entertaining fascists unaware? What if I warned you that by doing so, the town of Berlin might inadvertently empower a vicious fascist movement in India? What if I informed you that several municipalities around the country which have made that mistake have had to deal with the embarrassment of publicly backtracking? The mistake you see is public engagement with an organization called Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh, or HSS. Quite a number of local governments in Connecticut have platformed and praised the HSS. Last night, for instance, I pointed out to the town of Rocky Hill that they probably should have Googled the HSS before repeatedly staging photo ops with the organization. However, since August of 2022, at least 4 cities and 2 states, after learning the truth about this organization, have formally retracted proclamations that they gave to the HSS. So, what is the truth? Well, the HSS here in America, when it is seeking access to the halls of local political power, presents itself as a benign cultural organization, advertising its charitable and religious programs. The part the HSS leaves out is that it is the international wing of a violent paramilitary in India called RSS. As political scientist Dr. Christoph Jafferlot explains, the HSS is the RSS operated under a different name, but it will strive to mask the links they have with the RSS to avoid being overtly stigmatized. Yet why would association with the RSS stigmatize the HSS? Well, because as Indian civil rights activist Dr. Anand Paltunde explained, the RSS believes in a fascist paradigm and is clearly patterned on the fascist militias 20th century Europe. So I could go into great detail about all of this, but in the short time that we have together here tonight, I will just sum it up. The RSS in India are modern day Nazis. And the HSS here in America serves as a support base and propaganda mouthpiece for them. The RSS in India represents hate, oppression, and supremacy. And every time a local government here in America promotes the HSS, they are, albeit unwittingly, aiding and abetting the ongoing and escalating subjugation of hundreds of millions of downtrodden Indian authorities. So please do a tiny bit more research than other neighboring towns like Rocky Hill and others have done. Google the HSS, or at the very least, take a look at this info packet about the organization and just avoid giving space to the RSS's international rating.
Just a question for you, just curious, how did they how do they approach the towns? What is their, you know,
modus
mission?
operandi?
Yeah, what do they come and want to do? in our
Normally,
town?
they approach the towns asking for proclamation for various things like for a yoga day or for what's called a Raksha Bandhan, which is a Hindu ceremony where they meet with fire and peace chiefs and tie a thread around their wrists.
Okay,
Things like that, which are typical benign Hindu religious
okay,
festivals or celebrations or actions.
yeah, yeah,
But which are typically done by them under the banner of this organization.
Yeah.
Using their name, they'll appear in uniform as the HSS. And sometimes they'll appear in stage photo ops holding the HSS banner with the city officials. And oftentimes they'll solicit proclamations, which in particular, and I have an article here about one of those that was retracted back in California. In particular, proclamations which they insist upon having their organization specifically named in it, specifically having that proclamation given.
okay, no, appreciate the info. Thank you. You too. And we are still in our audience of citizens. Anyone else wishes to speak? No one else is here to speak right now. We'll get to, obviously, Maureen, we'll get to you on the agenda. Anyone else in Zoom land out there? No. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and close our audience of citizens and move on to our agenda, which is the mayor's update. Yes, okay, I recognize that. Well, I just wanted to update, I wanted to read one thing here first, and I'll update one other thing, and then we'll move on to our consent agenda. This is from our Control Officers Appreciation. The Connecticut Municipal Animal Control Officers Association would like to take this opportunity to recognize your animal control officer, Janet London, Officer Kate Matson, for their hard work and dedication to our profession. Officer London, Officer Matson have served their community with compassion and professionalism, putting the well-being of animals and their care at the highest priority. This week is Animal Control Officers Week for the state, and we're taking time to thank the animal control officers of the state for all the hard work they do throughout the year, and thank them for being outstanding control officers and all they do. Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, we know it's a tough job, and we appreciate what they do, and they obviously police our animals and parks, so we appreciate that, taking that time. So I wanted to just update for the record our April 12th joint meeting, if I could, very quickly. And that was our joint meeting, which we had all voted to go, the council had voted unanimously to reject the budget and go to the joint meeting with the Board of Finance, which we had last week on the 12th. And we had a discussion, pretty good discussion there for, I don't know, I guess we were there for a couple hours, I think. And ultimately, we made a motion and a suggestion. A couple things we were trying to accomplish there was to, one, as we had discussed at the budget discussion on the council, we were trying to lower the budget a little bit more on the town side. We were trying to go from the presented budget from the Board of Finance was lowered from our current mill rate of 34.31 to 30.02. We were trying to take it a little bit lower during some of our discussions here in the council. Hence, we went back to the joint meeting, and we were trying to get down to about a 29.32, which would be about a 5.6 increase. There was removing capital, there was removing some local match for grants, reducing bonding for the HVAC at Hubbard and Griswold, which are a couple years out, using the fund balance. And that would have brought our mill rate down to the 29.32, which would have been about a 0.56 increase, which would have been just about a zero increase in the budget. However, it would have perhaps taken some money off the tax bill that folks are dealing with for the revaluation for our property. Obviously, that's mandated by the state. We do it every 5 years. Berlin was in, I mean, it's a positive thing. Unfortunately, it's great that our property values went up, especially after COVID. That's many communities that has happened to, which is a good thing, meaning it's as we know, a wonderful community to move to and live in. And but it's a overall 17% increase, and the single family homes during this particular revaluation are the ones that took the brunt of it. Most homes are looking at about a 20% increase on their property value, hence their tax bill will go up. So we were trying to lower it as much as we can to shave a little bit off of that increase. It's literally impossible to erase the revaluation, other than we'd have to go negative on our budget, and that would be obviously would never go there, because that would not be good for town services and or the Board of Ed. Along with that, part of the motion was to raise the Board of Ed budget to 3.2, and also advise them to use their contingency fund of about 200 grand, which brought it to about effective raise of about 3.6, and that was to fund the positions by their information, especially 3 red, positions: secondary reading teacher, elementary math intervention, and academic resource position, which were deemed critical by the Board of Ed. We listened to folks during the Board of Finance discussions over the last month or two, and we took that to heart, and we thought that was a reasonable request to add some funding into the Board of Ed. And those were both sides of the motion. They were overall voted down. We needed 9 people. We only had 7. There was no real reason why they were voted down. We just, I don't know, I don't know, some folks on the Board of Finance and on this council thought, I guess it was not necessary to raise the Board of Ed budget and or cut taxes for our folks in Berlin. That's the end result of what happened. Now that will go to our voters next week. Please go out and vote on the 25th of April. That's our first budget referendum. And just my personal recommendation is I would vote no on both budgets. If I was voting, which I will be voting, I would vote no to the town budget. And there's the sub part of that would be too high, too low. I would say too high. That's how I'm planning on voting. And I would say no to the Board of Ed budget. And I would say too low, because I think we need to, at a minimum, fund those critical positions for our students, for our school system. Many people have spoke up in favor of those positions at the budget meeting and our public hearing on the budget. Take nothing away from the Board of Finance. They did a great job. They had a difficult year with the revals, trying to lower our budget as much as possible and fund the Board of Ed at 3% where it stands now. So their budget is going to the referendum, the 3% increase for the Board of Ed, and the increase to the mill rate will be dropped to 30.0, which amounts to about a 2.9% increase. We tried to lower that, and we tried to give a little bit back the Board of Ed, which wouldn't affect the taxes on folks' homes. So that's what I would say. A little disappointed that we couldn't come to a cooperative effort with those of us on the council and some folks on the Board of Finance. So that's where we sit. We'll let the voters tell us what they want and what they think, and it'll come back around. It'll come back around depending upon what happens. Would come back around to the Board of Finance again. They'll go through their deliberations, and then it'll come back to the council, and we'll see how it all plays out. But I just hope that, I don't know. I was just shocked that we heard so much about the Board of Ed budget, quite frankly, and we tried to do the best we could and give them critical positions by their words. And folks didn't want it. So I don't even know where to go with that, but we'll leave it at that, and we'll see what our voters say, and then we'll take it from there. So that's all I have for my update. And we will go ahead and move on to our meeting agenda. We'll start with our consent agenda. And we will have 5 topics. Approve the donation of a round of golf for 4 and 2 cart speeds as a raffle prize item during the Berlin Lions Club and tasting event. Approved to host 2023 senior amateur qualifier on Wednesday, August 9th, bypass the Greenfields for the participants. Approve the donation of driving range balls to the Berlin YMCA golf outing. Total value of the donation is $250. $5. $5.
So
Hey.
bad.
$5 per player for approximately 50 golfers or less. Accept donations totaling $3,289 to the Berlin Senior Center Agency. And accept donations to the Berlin Animal Control donation account for $50 for animal care and supplies. So those are our 5 topics. I know you had this before, all of you, and reviewed it. So if there's no questions, we'll go ahead and take a motion on it.
I move that we accept the consent agenda items as presented.
You second on that? All right, thanks. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so moved. All right, so on to our, where are we now? We're on to
Maureen.
our public hearing. Maureen. How you doing? Good. So I will, let me call to order our public hearing. The town council of the town of Berlin will meet at Berlin Town Hall, Council Chambers, 240 Kensington Road on Tuesday, April 18th, 2023 at 7 o'clock for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the proposed plan of conservation development. The public is invited to comment on the proposed plan of conservation development. And copies are on file for the draft in the office of the town clerk. That's our purpose. And you want to give us a little bit more on that?
I'll give you a little bit of an introduction if
That'd be
I
great.
may.
Appreciate that.
Hi, everyone. Thank
Hi.
you for scheduling the public hearing. As most of you are aware, the Planning and Zoning Commission has been working on the update to the Plan of Conservation and Development. The plan was last updated in 2013 and is due for its 10-year statutory update in September of 2023. The Planning and Zoning Commission created an update committee substantially of its members at the time and has been working with its consultant FHI Studios since 2021. To create the plan. The draft plan, which includes an implementation plan on achieving the goals in the coming years, has been printed, posted, distributed to the council at your last meeting, and sent to the Capital Region Council of Governments for review, all as required by statute. This public hearing was requested to provide an additional opportunity for presentation and comments on the plan prior to town council taking action on the plan and prior to the required public hearing that the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold in June before it takes action on its adoption of the 2023 plan. I'd now like to introduce our consultant, Francesco Gomes from FHI Studio, who is joining remotely and will present a PowerPoint summary of the plan, further explanation as to what has gone into its creation, the adoption process, and that would be followed by the public comments. After the conclusion, we ask the council consider whether we'll continue to discuss and or possibly schedule to vote to endorse all or part of the plan. And it is also listed on the agenda as a regular meeting item. Additionally, for all our many viewers in the room, I did bring additional copies of the print plan. Or if any of you don't have yours and you want it to flip through, I have copies. If you need.
Uh-oh.
Be like a couple- they not-
You have an extra one, I would have. Thank
No,
you.
let me give you the wrinkled
I'll
one. I
take
had-
the wrinkled one.
I will note for the record.
Is there only one of us that forgot it?
I won't tell Lisa.
Who would that be?
Do want to just note that that Councilwoman Capola is on the committee with us and has also contributed to drafting of the plan.
Great.
I wore mine out studying that.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. I take it the floor is mine, is that correct?
Yes, it is. Welcome.
Okay, great, thank you. Francisco Gomes with FHI Studios. We're hired by the town to conduct this update of the plan, and it was about a year ago that we were before you, walking you through the affordable housing plan. So it's good to be back, and it's good to be back with a draft of the plan of conservation and development, which we've been at work on for about a year and a half now. So I have about a 20-minute presentation that will help you understand our process, the function of the plan, and some of the major recommendations of the plan, at which point we'll open it up, or I'll stop the presentation. We can open it up to any questions or comments. And as I go along, if council, if you have any particular question for me, this is your meeting, so feel free to speak up. I'm happy to answer it. So first of all, just to get on the same page for everyone regarding the role and the purpose of the POCD. As Maureen stated, the state requires towns to update or rewrite their POCDs at least once every 10 years. Yours is due in September. And this process really affords us an opportunity, and you an opportunity as a community, to take an assessment of the trends that have happened, that have been occurring in the community over the past 10 years, and where you are with respect to your land use, housing, economic development, the state of your facilities and infrastructure, the cultural resources that you have in community and in the community, and other items related to both the management of growth and stewardship of those resources. So the plan is very comprehensive, and it's really intended to guide growth in communities so that communities preserve and protect valuable resources while growing. And as I mentioned, this follows our work on the affordable housing plan, which was really integral to this process. For both efforts, we took a close look at housing needs across the community. And the affordable housing plan was adopted in May of last year. And it really provides a foundation for much of the housing work that we did within the POCD. That being said, the housing recommendations we make in the POCD are a lot broader than the affordable housing plan. As I mentioned, we started this process about a year and a half ago, and obviously during COVID, so we had to be very flexible and adaptive in the way we engaged with the public and even with each other. And we've held a combination as a committee with the Planning Commission. We've held a combination of in-person and Zoom meetings to facilitate this process. So we started the planning update process about a year and a half ago. Our engagement with the community was through a number of different forums, including an online survey for which we had very good participation, a public workshop that we held last year in June, multiple focus group meetings where we focused on individual topics such as environmental resources, cultural resources, housing, economic development. And now we're at the stage where we have a draft of the plan and we're sharing it with both you and CROG for review, as is required by the state. And our next step in this process is to bring the plan, once we receive any comments that you might have, any comments that CROG might have, and amend the plan accordingly, will be to bring it to a public hearing for adoption, which could happen as early as early June of this year. Okay. So I'll just keep going unless anyone has any questions. As I mentioned with community engagement, we made every attempt possible to engage as many residents as we could engage and invite into the process. All of our planning documents, presentations, recordings of our meetings have been available online, posted online. So we've been very transparent in this process. We did a tremendous amount of promotion surrounding the online survey, workshop, the thematic meetings, all in the effort to get people engaged. That being said, the number of people that participated in this process was relatively small compared to the community as a whole. But those people that we engaged with represented a diversity of viewpoints on all the issues. And so we feel that they are in fact representative, their voice was heard and they're representative of your community as a whole. If we could talk to everyone in town during this process, we would love to. The reality is that when we invite people into the process, we get a small percentage of people that end up representing the community. And this is typical everywhere we go. And we feel the feedback that we got was very good feedback, very representative, and therefore we feel the plan addresses the issues that are most important to the community. Okay, so I'd like to just go over a couple of things that we did here through some of our feedback, and we had a survey that had many questions, so I'm not going to go through all those. But I just to give you a couple give you a sense as to what people think about Berlin and what in the kind of direction they gave us for this plan. This is a question I like to ask in the communities we work with, just to gauge people's capacity for change, their interest in change. And it really does vary from community to community, the type of response that we got. Overwhelmingly, when we ask people to represent the statement that best, or select the statement that best represents your thoughts about Berlin, people are in your community are overwhelmingly incrementalists. They're open and receptive to growth and change, but they want that change to occur incrementally. And as we dove further into these responses and had more conversations, what we understood is that people are very interested in protecting the identity of Berlin, its identity as a community that has an agrarian history. They're very interested in protecting its farms. They're receptive to growth in areas like Kensington and in the villages, but they're very interested in protecting other areas. So that's why we saw the greatest share of responses in that way. And we had a relatively equal number of people that said, I like Berlin as it is now, keep it the same. And actually slightly more that are receptive to the community being open for significant growth and change. So the plan that we laid forward that's in front of you is what I would consider an incremental approach to growth in Berlin. That being said, within the plan, we prioritize protection of open space, of farms, of natural resources, of your cultural resources and historic resources. But we identify opportunities for growth with the infrastructure that you have. So the plan is not bullish on building out new infrastructure, whether it be expanding sewers, water mains, new roads, whatever it might be. It really targets growth in areas where you have the capacity to accommodate it with the infrastructures that you have, with the facilities that you have, with the schools that you have. Our plan is very data driven. I think compared to most POCDs you'll see in Connecticut, we go much further into the data that's available to us. And much of that is census-based, but we do pull from many other databases. It's really important to know where you're at as a community with respect to items such as population, school enrollments, demographics and diversity, economic trends. And more importantly, it's important to know how things have changed over the past 10 years, because it'll give you a sense as to what direction you're headed in the next 10 years. And whether or not you want to take any corrective actions on any of those trends. So one of the most important points to make in Berlin, and this is not common of every community in Connecticut right now, is that you are a growing community. And for the most part, you as a community have grown consistently since 1970, really since World War II, but the growth immediately after World War II was actually pretty rapid. But since 1970, between 1970 and 2010, that growth was extremely consistent. And it's kind of flatlined since 2020, but you are still growing, but the rate diminished. And I think you could see that in the chart at top. However, your school enrollment has consistently been shrinking, not at an alarming rate, but at a very consistent and almost predictable rate. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Smaller household sizes, you have an aging community, so you have households occupied by more seniors and less families. So those are very important trends when we're talking about growth in your community and housing, or talking about facilities and schools or anything of that nature. So I think you'll find that the plan provides a lot of data to this effect. As I mentioned, Berlin's an aging community, and you're not alone. Most of the communities in Connecticut are aging, and what we mean by that is you have a greater share of seniors now than you did 5 or 10 years ago. And that's because of the baby boom population. They're well into their approaching being well into their retirement now, and that's showing up on the right side of this chart. Where you are missing people in Berlin is you're missing people aged 35 to 44, or you've lost people in the 10-year period from 2010 to 2019, and some school-age children as well. So this information is important to us because some of the recommendations that we make are targeted at supporting the diversity of housing supply in Berlin, and specifically housing that would cater to seniors. And for this very obvious reason. And also supporting housing for families. If you can provide housing for seniors, you can free up single-family homes for families and stabilize some of these numbers on the lower end, so that you don't in the future actually experience population decline, which if you're not bringing in younger people, bringing in families that will become lifelong residents, you'll be susceptible to decline. Very briefly on income, you're a relatively wealthy community compared to the rest of Hartford County, and even Connecticut as a whole for that matter. But you still have about the same share of people that struggle to afford their housing. And so this is the share. Anything more than 30% of household income going to housing costs is considered housing cost burdened. This is Berlin on the left, Hartford County in the middle, and Connecticut on the right. And it goes dark blue renters, owners in the middle with a mortgage, owners without a mortgage on the right. And Berlin's numbers are a little lower, so you have a slightly fewer share of your population that struggles to afford housing, but otherwise remarkably consistent with Hartford County and Connecticut, which means all of that extra income is really just going to pay for housing, because your housing costs are relatively high in Berlin compared to Hartford County or the state as a whole. All of this is an argument for introducing more housing to the community, a greater diversity of housing at different price points. Now, we've taken all that data and we've organized it, and all of the input we received from the public and all the research that we did. And we've organized that into a plan that is presented in 6 topic areas, 6 sections or chapters, if you will. And that includes environmental resources, housing, economic development, transportation, facilities and services, and cultural resources. And for each one of those, we have a primary goal that's identified. That's the big idea of what you should be focused on and what you should try to accomplish or in some cases continue to do over the next 10 years. And each one of those goals is specified right there on the screen and obviously within the plan that you have in front of you. Now I'll walk you through these one by one and just talk about some of the priorities. So environmental resources, our priorities, and this is reflected in both the goal statement and the strategies and actions that are recommended in support of environmental resources. The priorities include preserving your rural characteristics, expanding recreational resources, limiting growth in rural areas, improving open space connections with trails and greenways, permanently protecting additional open space, and protecting and improving water quality in the community. And that's something that's really required as part of your MS4 permit program and through some other things that you really have to do. And it's really important to keep that on the radar. Housing, I talked about housing a little bit already, but just to drive this point home, the priorities that we identify within the plan include increasing the diversity of housing stock. So this isn't just about more units, and this certainly isn't about subdivisions. It's really about providing more different types of housing at different price points, different size housing, different configurations, different affordability levels. Implementing the recommendations of the Affordable Housing Plan, which has its many very specific and targeted recommendations to that, which speaks to the needs of affordable housing. And so we just point to that, all of that work and recommend that plan be, the recommendations of that plan be implemented. That will enable you as a community to meet and exceed a supply of 10% of qualified affordable housing. Berlin is just below 10% right now. It's 9 and point something. The state has basically incentivizes every community to achieve 10%. Berlin has made tremendous progress towards this mark over the past couple of decades. And you're very close to hitting 10%. And what it means, if you can hit 10% and ideally be well enough over that you don't risk falling back below, is that you become immune to 830G zoning applications, which could, or appeals, which could bypass your zoning regulations and allow a developer to build, essentially whatever density of housing they want, where they want. So that's very important for 2 reasons. 1 is simply to provide housing that's needed. And 2, to give you more control over development in your community. I already talked about the need for more affordable housing, more housing options tailored to seniors. And then finally, we have a lot of focus on Kensington Village and the TOD area because you've had a lot of success with development. You have the infrastructure there, you have the transportation options there. And so we place emphasis on more mixed-use development, which includes residential in that area. And we also look to other areas of opportunity that have infrastructure, such as along the Berlin Turnpike and Deming Road. With respect to economic development, the primary goal is to grow and diversify the tax base. This ties right back into the discussion you had at the beginning of the meeting. And it's about keeping the burden off of homeowners. And also leveraging the incredible resources that you have with respect to freight rail line, proximity to highways, proximity to other major employment centers. Berlin is incredibly well situated. It's really almost ideally situated to participate in more than one economic market. You have Hartford, Middletown, Meriden, and you're halfway between Boston, New York as well, these larger regional markets. So we place a lot of emphasis on the potential that is there. However, that being said, we think that the business and commercial and industrial districts that you have right now are adequate. So we're not making any recommendations that you expand those zoning districts. Rather, continue to focus on development and redevelopment within those areas and supporting business development. We have identified a couple of areas that have long been discussed as potential for mixed-use development, and that includes the Hilltop area and an area on the other side, just east of that at Mill Street and Route 9, a large parcel there. And those areas have been discussed in the past as TED sites. And we think mixed-use development is probably most appropriate, so the plan supports that. The town has been very proactive with identifying the targeted economic development sites, documenting those, tracking those. And we recommend continuing to focus on those sites because those sites have a lot of potential. And then finally, one of our recommendations is to evaluate your zoning regulations. Just to see if there are any updates or changes that are needed to support uses in those commercial industrial zones. Transportation, the town's done a very good job of maintaining its infrastructure, bridges, roads. That being said, it doesn't matter what town you go to. If you talk to the town engineer or director of public works, they'll tell you they need to pave more miles of road every year to keep up. And they're always right, but we know it's a very costly thing to do. Regardless, need to maintain a focus on that. And the town's gone through a lot of effort to map and document and better manage pavement in the town. You have an incredible opportunity to fully leverage Berlin Station Connecticut rail service by continuing to invest in the Kensington TOD area and to encourage development in that area. And so you should leverage those transportation resources. Strategically expand your sidewalk network, particularly connecting into Kensington Center, East Berlin Village as well. And finally, adopt a complete streets approach to transportation improvements. And you're probably all familiar with this term. Basically planning for all users of the roadway, bicyclists, pedestrians, transit, etc. Facilities and services, we pretty much recommend that you continue the regular maintenance that you're already doing, all these incredible facilities. There's the football field right there that has been recently improved. And so you've done a good job of improving and maintaining these facilities. I think we all appreciate the fact that's something that's ongoing, right? You're never done with that. And so there are some facilities that have deferred maintenance that need to be attended. And then you have your public safety facilities that need continued investment, planned improvements at the police station. We know that the privately owned firehouses are in need of support, and the town really needs to be engaged because those volunteer companies are far less costly to you than a full-time professional firehouse would be. So we talk about that within the plan. Some of the most important facilities and services that you provide to your residents is your sewer and water service. And of course, Berlin has 3 water companies, and that's not the most efficient way to do business. This is something that's been talked about for many decades now. And it's been studied in the past, but it's something that should remain on the radar. And the study that is planned for potential consolidation of those systems should definitely occur. It's a very important issue. The Mattabasic District has told us as such. They've told you as a community that you need to get inflow and infiltration under control. Otherwise, they could basically restrict new connections to the service. And that could most efficiently be done with one coordinated system. And finally, the investments do need to continue to be made in that system. The town's been very good with its water system, but the other two systems have lagged behind, which speaks to the importance of a coordinated approach. And finally, cultural resources. I mean, this is your identity as a community, your farms, your historic properties, and your history as an agrarian community. We've talked a lot about the importance of really loosening up zoning regulations and other types of regulations affecting farms so that they can remain viable commercial operations by allowing them to conduct more accessory uses and more farm-related uses that might not currently be allowed. And so we talk about that within the plan. And you have zoning restrictions on building homes on some farms of certain sizes. We point to the need to lift that just to make it as easy as possible for someone to live on and operate a small farm. And then we focus on the need to also in much the same way, allow property owners in the Worthington Ridge Historic District to give them some flexibility to earn income, whether it be having a small office in their home or some sort of rental income, so that they can continue to invest in, restore, and maintain those very large structures. And then finally, the Worthington Meeting House, right? This is a project that's been long in the making. It's a far away from complete. And there are a lot of needs with respect to preserving this important structure. And we think that should be completed and be a real point of pride for the community and an incredible asset as well. So the last part, last substantive part of this plan, and a very important component of any plan of conservation and development, is the future land use plan or map. This is a required element of the plan. And this map acts as a foundation for your land use policies, mostly your zoning regulations and zoning map. This is not a zoning map. This map is created for the purpose of guiding land use over the next decade plus. It is somewhere in between an existing land use map, meaning of what our parcels, what kind of use our parcels in your community use for now, and a zoning map. A zoning map is prescriptive of what our parcels allowed to be used for. It's somewhere in between. What this map is used for is to guide land use and zoning decisions so that when you entertain amending a zoning district, amending uses allowed in a zoning regulation, you can go to this map as a guide and check to see if this map is supportive of that. And this map doesn't stand on its own. We've got a page or two of narrative that explains how it's used, explains what these various categories are. And I think you'll see that green covers most of the map, and that's because green is either parks and protected open space. That's the very dark green. So right away, we're kind of subtracting that land out from the equation by identifying it as a park or open space that's preferred and desired use of that property. The medium green is rural, residential, and agricultural, which covers about a third of Berlin. The yellow-green neighborhood residential, and all the bright colors there are some form of mixed-use development or commercial or industrial development. So as I mentioned, this map is a guide. This map can be updated. You get an opportunity to update this map over the next 10 years if needed, because things change and we understand that. And if you identify an area that is preferable for use that's not stated on this map, well, you go through a process, make sure that everyone in the community agrees it's a good idea, and you update this map, and then it provides support for any zoning modifications that you might make to that effect. Okay, so I'd like to talk very briefly on how the plan's recommendations are organized. And it all starts with a vision. So we have a vision statement. It's at the front of the document. And that describes the big idea, who you are as a community, who you want to, you know, what your values are, where you want to go as a community. That's the big idea. That's supported by the individual goals, which I'd mentioned before, of which we have 6, 1 for each major section of the plan. And then each one of those goals is supported by a number of strategies. Those are the strategies for achieving the goals. Sometimes these are called policies or objectives. We use the terminology strategy. And then finally, we break down those strategies into specific action steps, action items that give you clear direction on exactly what needs to be done. Now, that being said, it's really not possible for us to anticipate all of the actions that might be necessary to achieve some of these goals or as part of some of these strategies. We build in what we can anticipate, and with the idea of being once you get started on progress towards some of these, you identify other actions that are necessary, and you could keep a working list or a working plan in place. Let's go to the implementation summary. This is the last several pages of the document. And it takes all of the strategies and actions that are presented within the document, puts everything in one place. So this is kind of the reference guide. This is the worksheet. If you just want to know what needs to be done, what the marching orders are, you just grab these few pages and it'll guide you. This summarizes the strategies. The goal is at the top for each section. The strategies, the specific actions that are part of that strategy, who the lead entity is, and for many of these is planning and zoning, but we've identified departments as well. Partner entities that can assist in the effort. Priority level, which will give you a sense of as to which one of these items should be our most urgent, which ones you should get started with. In addition to that, just so you understand how all these pieces fit together, we have a few columns on the left that identify which theme that these target or kind of check the box on. You know, is it about protecting environmental resources, growing your economic base, expanding housing? And that'll help you understand, well, some of these provide a lot more value than others because we're addressing multiple issues of both providing housing, expanding our economic base, investing in facilities and infrastructure. And so that's a little supplemental information just to help you understand how these fit together and fit in. Now, our next steps in this process. So we are looking for any feedback that you might want to provide us with. Ultimately, we are looking for an endorsement of this plan by council. The Planning Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, and their planning function is the body that adopts the plan. They have the responsibility for developing and adopting this plan. Ultimately, it's up to them to make a decision as to how to receive any feedback, how we might make any changes to the plan, and whether or not to modify and CROG. Ideally, council, you're fully on board with any comments or requested revisions that you would like to add, because really it's going to take a whole town to be successful in achieving some of these items, and this plan really will need to support it. It can't just be the Planning and Zoning Commission's document. So once we have your feedback, our intention is to to make any revisions that might be requested or as agreed upon with the committee. And then as required by the state to file the plan with town clerk, both the hard copy with town clerk and the revised draft on the town website for additional review by the public. We then have 35 days, a minimum 35-day review period at which we would bring it to a public hearing of either a special meeting or a regular meeting of the Planning Zoning Commission to hold a public hearing and a vote of adoption. As I mentioned, right now, we're on target to do that in early June. All right, that concludes the presentation. And I'm happy to receive any comments or questions.
Okay, thank you so much for that. A lot to digest in this plan. We did see it at our last meeting, but there's a lot to look at here. So we obviously have some time to look through it, obviously on the timeline that was just mentioned. So appreciate presentation during we're in our public hearing still. So now would be the point for public comments. If there's any public comments that anybody from the public would like to make, now would be the time. Anybody online? Yes, the standing room only crowd here at the council chambers. Anyone here wishes to speak? No? Okay. And so now we'll go ahead and close that portion. We'll go to our town council comments. Anyone here wishes to speak? Yes, yes. Sure.
Can you hear me? Quick question. On page 17, there's a water quality assessment. Can you walk me through this? What do you mean by not supporting, not assessed, not assessed? Hatchery Brook in particular was my question.
Sure.
And we do have fish there. It is a hatchery.
Yeah,
I know that
let
we
me
stock
pull it up.
it.
And you know what I'll do? Just in the event that we have other questions about a specific content, I'm going to share my screen. Pull the document up, we can all look at it there. And happy to answer that question because water quality is a really important issue for any community, and you really need to remain focused on this issue. So these are water quality assessments that aren't done by my firm, so we're not the ones assessing the water quality or collecting samples. This work is done by DEEP, by the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. So there's a couple of different reports they provide.
You're breaking up a bit. Can
Pulling
you
from the
maybe
most
more
recent
into your
qualities
mic?
measured and some.
breaking up a bit?
Okay, how about that? About now?
But
try it.
better for now, yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, all right. So the water quality is assessed in a couple different ways, and as is presented in the chart. One. Swimming. And the actual
I'm not hearing you at all, sir.
Yeah, unfortunately.
water
continue to be
quality,
proven
and
up.
that there you're
It's like
testing
freezing, right?
turbidity amount of sediment.
We can, you could start all over if you want,
All
because
right.
we're not hearing anything you're saying, so.
Let me do this. Okay, I'm gonna turn off my video feed. Maybe the bandwidth is a little low, and at least you'll have my audio hopefully. So let's see if that works. Okay, can you hear me? Is that any better?
Yes,
Moment.
yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again, and I apologize for any connection issues. The water quality is assessed by DEEP in a few different ways. Whether or not it supports aquatic life, whether or not a water body is suitable for recreation. Quality of that water based upon testing. And what we see based upon the information that's available is that many of your water bodies are simply not assessed for aquatic life or recreation, which is why they say not assessed. They simply haven't been sampled, measured. That's what not assessed means. Now, not supporting means that the water quality really isn't adequate enough to support aquatic life. You shouldn't need any
inadequate
fish
or-
out of that system if you were.
Inadequate.
Not supporting is not adequate.
So
Okay,
how do we do that
not
at a
supporting is,
fishery, a hatchery? I'm missing this here.
Yeah.
I mean.
This is Jim,
It's a
maybe,
hatchery that's stocked by the state of Connecticut, and you're telling me that it's not supporting under aquatic life.
no, I'm not telling you, it's Connecticut.
So what are you
DEEP.
telling me?
No, ma'am, no, it's Connecticut DEEP. This is their reporting. Now, it's likely not, now these are point samples at a location on these systems. So it's likely not at the hatchery where.
Somewhere else.
Hatchery, look at that. I don't know.
yeah, this is Jim. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jim, we can hear you.
Okay, so we've talked about this section also in terms of making some clarifications. So thanks for bringing this up. I mean, I think that as Francisco said, there may be some data, that's incomplete. Also, we do have on some of the upper sections of some of our brooks, we have flow issues, seasonal flow issues that may be problematic for some aquatic life, but I think we'll try to develop language to clarify that. So it is something we had talked about a bit, but thanks for pointing it out.
Yeah, it's very confusing and, being on the environment committee and actually working with DEEP and talking to them and then looking at this, I'm just a bit confused. So maybe if we can clarify how this is broken out, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for the comment.
Can I ask, did you just happen to go through the table, or did you also read the text associated with it? I just want to see if it's the table or the text itself that may
The
have been.
text, the table itself is very confusing, but I did read through this. I mean, I didn't read every paragraph, but I did skim.
Okay. Okay.
All right, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Cisco. Anyone else from the council have any questions?
Can I nitpick?
Yes, go ahead, do it. Well, that's what we're here for.
So there was
That's
some
what we're
other statistics.
Yeah,
Right, I mean, there was some, I had my question.
yeah,
Page 20.
get a question.
Okay, this is my last question because we
it's
can spend
okay.
the evening together. Maybe next time in person would be even better. So on page 20, at the end of the Trap Rock Ridges section, there's a comment that's made about lynx are no longer present. When they run across in front of your car multiple times in the same week, maybe it was the same animal, but they are present, just FYI.
Okay, well, thank you for
I
sharing
like that one.
that anecdotal information, because the
Like I
information
said,
we
we can
had
spend the evening
suggested
together.
that they were no longer around. So.
They are here.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
Welcome.
Okay,
I actually
well,
took
that's very
pictures of
good. I saw one in Simsbury about a decade ago, and
they're here.
that's the only and last time I've seen one.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
we got-
do. It's all in Berlin.
Everything's all in Berlin.
All in Berlin.
Okay, thank you, Donna.
I'm not going to torture
No,
you
you can do
anymore.
more. What, that's all right. And we'll have, this is on our last bite at the apples. so
Right,
we got
right.
time. Yes, Charlie, do you have something?
Yeah, just overall, I want to say this is a phenomenal report. And I can tell everybody involved, our town planner, our consultant, economic people, everybody put a lot of work into this. Overall, I think it's great. Obviously, there's gonna be a few items here and there that we might nix.
I can't help it.
I want to thank everybody involved. It's a great plan to look forward to. Some of the items that are to be concentrated on, I don't understand how we're gonna enforce them, like our water department's been looking at them for decades. I mean, it says we should concentrate on that. I'd really love to have the plan, have a recommendation on how to do it. Maybe that's not in their purview. Overall, thank you, everybody.
Anyone else?
Yeah, could I put, hi, this is Donna Rosolo.
Yeah, hey Donna, yeah, hey.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate also, I think it's a great plan. And I'm wondering what are our opportunities to ensure that it's shared with, obviously, we don't have much audience, citizen participation tonight. We also have all of our other boards and commissions, for whom what we're learning here will impact the work and the decisions that they make. So, I mean, obviously, everybody who's serving on some type of board or commission, will be privy to this. And obviously the zoning board is certainly very versed in it. But what about others? And how might we create opportunities for them to either, obviously they could rewatch the video from this evening, but maybe there might be another opportunity. Do they all have a copy of this? I'm just wondering, what's the dissemination plan?
Maureen, we go to you.
So that's actually one of the things that I noticed as we were talking through what we've done and where the information came from and some of the recommendations came from that we kind of glossed over. And as the staff with the consultant went through developing the sections and doing our research, we did engage the applicable department heads. We disseminated the sections or questions, or Francisco's team also reached out to department heads for feedback. And then our staff attended several different boards and commission meetings, particularly addressing their sections to get feedback and on the items that relate to their charges. And just as an example, Public Works, the director, as well as some of his division heads, Water Control, Water Commission, Conservation Commission, Economic Development and Economic Development Commission, Parks and Rec, with the director and the board, Facilities, Historic District. So there's been quite a bit of inter-engagement with the departments throughout town. The plan is posted online. We're trying to send it out in mass emails and every other way we can, and it's posted on the website. I think it was a featured item, actually. Made sure it was out there as top news or hot topic or whatever that section is called, highlight.
Spotlight, there we are.
Spotlight.
Spotlight.
So I hope that answers the question. I also saw some confusion when we talked on cases, when we talked about the hilltop area.
Yes, what is?
That's otherwise
What is-
known as the Golden Triangle.
Oh, okay, we
The
know that.
Golden Triangle,
Absolutely.
or perhaps not the golden.
Hilltop.
Oh,
So
We
interesting.
need to change that name. Yeah, probably not very golden, but that's okay. Maybe it will be someday.
Someday it might
Yes.
be.
saw a couple of
be the
inquisitive
trap rock.
looks there, and on that map, the
Yeah.
land use map,
I
you'll
don't know where
see it
Hilltop
extends
is.
across Mill Street.
Yeah.
To the other side, that's
Mhm.
also parcels that are not residential.
Our Lakeland Theater.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you for that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
That's
I
all.
appreciate that.
And again, feedback is encouraged. And
And what's the deadline for us to, we'll all look at this and go through it a little bit more now that we had a little sketch of it, but
we had to, so by statute, we had to distribute it to you 65 days before the Planning and Zoning Commission
okay.
holds their public hearing. We have the public hearing for the Planning and Zoning Commission is anticipated for June 15th,
Okay,
which meets that 65 days.
okay.
But the next edit of the draft plan needs to be published 35 days before that public hearing. So like in the next couple of weeks so that we can then
Okay.
do updates, planning and zoning, I'm sorry.
Be the last time we have, so May 2nd, we have a meeting,
Second,
if we needed to
and
I don't know.
get it out by then, or before then.
Is this what, 2, 3 weeks?
if
2 weeks.
P and Z have to push it out, they can. We were trying to avoid getting too far into the summer, but it can be done.
Yeah.
The Plan of Conservation and Development Committee meets again next Thursday.
Okay.
This week, following week, and, and of course, we're working on it throughout, so we'll trying to maintain a timeline, but these are fluid.
If we have comments, would you want them emailed to you, or is that the best way to do it, or?
I think that's acceptable. Francisco, or you have, is there would that be contrary? Would their comments have to be at the town council?
No,
meeting?
not at all, not at all. They,
Not at all. That's
they
what
can
I would
provide
hope.
us
We can be,
comments before your next meeting. If you have comments you want to share with us, the sooner you can get that information to us, the better, because enables us to have a discussion about these items a little earlier and have a little more time to prepare.
Will do.
okay,
Especially anything.
This is Jim Mahoney again. One thing I was going to mention on implementation is that last time we did it, we did establish an implementation committee that operated for a period of time that had representatives of some of the key boards and commissions and a representative from the town council. So that's something that we'll want to consider to improve the implementation of the plan and keep it on the front and center in everybody's mind.
okay. All right, thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And we'll go.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that too. So
Okay.
we'll go ahead and close our
Thank you.
town council meeting at our town council comments in our public hearing, and we'll go ahead at this time, we'll go ahead and close our public hearing. So thank you very much. And we will move on to topic 1. Agenda item 1 is our, right? Roche is our
Yeah,
discussion, which we
hope you
just,
can hear me clearly.
yes, we got you.
So the first item on the agenda, I think we already completed that, the discussion about the draft plan.
Agreed,
Unless you have any further comments, I suppose we move on.
correct, I agree. I think we all agree, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, it pertains to the development agreement that we have with Newport. We had talked about some changes that we are making in terms of the 55 steel. And as a result of that, we need to make some amendments to the current plan. I'm going to turn it over to Jim to give a quick recap of what's going on. Nothing surprising. You have heard this before about reducing the number of units and the adjustments to parking. We talked about it, but we also need to reflect that in our agreement as well. So over to you, Jim.
Okay, yes, quickly, as Arosha had said, you're pretty much aware of the changes to the development plan, which were approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission in February. And it's for 55 steel. We're reducing the unit count from 60 to 50 and eliminating the under building parking. So that's been approved. We have the development agreement with Newport that specifies what the development will be. We have an attachment to that. So we want to update that attachment to reflect the newest development plan. So that's one part of it. Another part is that we've been going back and forth with removal of foundations, and now to implement our part of the work, which is the installation of the engineer control for the site to isolate the contaminated soils. We do need to remove the foundations. So we're going to modify the agreement to indicate that. And that was part of our bid for the engineer control project. And also Newport will be doing work on the site concurrent with our environmental work. because they'll be installing the footings, foundations, and utilities that are below the geomembrane or engineered control for the site. So it has to be kind of concurrent. But they're not going to own the site until our environmental work is done. So they're going to do that work under a license agreement, and we have a license agreement, but that's expired. So we just want to extend the license agreement. So those are the three main points.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Questions for Jim? If not, nothing. All right, we will go on to our motion.
Move to authorize the town manager to enter into an amendment to the purchase agreement between the town and Newport Realty Group LLC dated May 23, 2019, as amended to insert a modified development plan, Schedule B, to the attached updated Steel Center development site plan to provide that the town will remove the existing foundation, pulverize the foundation material, for reuse on site, and to enter into a modification to the license agreement between the town and Newport Realty Group LLC, extend the license to a new termination date of December 31st, 2023, subject to review and approval by the Corporation Council.
Thank you. Second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? We've seen this come before us many times, some modification, moving forward with it, I might add. I think they, right, didn't they just break ground on, like that building? What is that building?
Yes,
Yeah,
9 steel. They just broke
10.
ground on 9 steel. So there were 10. You're right.
10, right?
They
Yep.
finished
Yeah,
9. They broke ground on 10 and also 29, the small building. So they're
the little
working on
building, right,
both of
yeah.
those buildings.
That's
Yes.
wonderful. That is wonderful. You know, it's wonderful these folks are moving forward, honestly, with the economic conditions the way they are and construction costs. And all I could say is this developer made a commitment to Berlin and to that area, and they, so far, you know, I don't want to jinx it, but I don't think we will. They're you know, they mean what they say, and they do what they say, and it's great that they're continuing forward even under some difficult economic conditions for them, so, and for the town, of course. So anyway, there's nothing further on that. So all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so moved.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 3 has to do with the grant that we received from the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And this is for the Senior Center, Community Center grant.
Yeah, that's one.
And to date, we have spent about 574,000. 500,000 remain unexpended. And was for $750,000. So I know we've gone through some discussions, but one of the things we want to do is to try and apply for a extension of this grant so that we don't lose the money at some point if the town decides what you want to do with it. So what we are asking you is to give us the approval to go and apply for an extension. Jim, do you want to add anything to that?
No, just that Demus is agreeable to an extension to the end of 2024. So with your authorization, they've already provided us a draft contract and just reviewed it, so we can move forward with that if you so desire.
Yeah, yeah, okay, appreciate that. Yeah, because actually, I'm glad we did this. So we've been busy with a lot of things on the council, namely the budget the last few months, but I did want to bring back in the coming months some more discussion of the Senior Community Center. We really never ended that discussion. We still had more to do, and there still is some interest from other organizations of perhaps building something too. So that's some more discussions to come. So yes, to preserve this, should we need it down the road, that would be good, I think. So we appreciate you paying attention to that. And any other questions, council? No. Good. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a motion.
Move to pass the attached resolution to authorize the town manager to enter a new contract with the Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services for $574,034.70 and a grant refunds related to planning for the potential construction of a new community center, subject to review and approval of Corporation Council.
Second on that?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Good night.
Agenda item number 4 is a purchase order approval for sole source contractor automated building systems. We come to you this time of the year, between now and June 30th. We might go over the authorized amount of 25,000. So Doug's here to give you a quick recap. Over to you, Doug.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. How are you?
Hey Doug, good.
Yeah, as Rose mentioned, excuse me, we're just getting some things in place for the next fiscal year. Typically, some of these vendors for the building operation. So we're just coming ahead a little earlier on at the end of this fiscal year to get ready for next fiscal year, just to save a few steps as it get busier towards the summer.
Okay. Yes, okay, great. Questions for Doug? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take a motion.
Move to utilize sole source contractor automated building systems of Glastonbury, Connecticut, and increase the purchase orders as needed up to $50,000 in Department 61 school expenses, contractual services, and up to $50,000 as needed in Department 38 public building contractual services for the fiscal year 2024. And this is in the best interest of the town.
Take a second on that. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Agenda item number 5 is something similar for on-call services. First one for masonry services and all for environmental engineering and hazardous material testing. These were all went through a bid process. Again, if it goes over 25, we want to have the flexibility to go ahead and engage them for services. And as you know, closer to June 30th, these things do pop up with the schools closing and all that.
Okay,
So that's agenda item number 5.
okay, thank you, Roche. Yeah, it's the same thing, obviously, so we can make sure we have seamless help if we need it from our contractor. So if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and take a motion.
Move to extend bid numbers 2022-32 and 2022-33 for on-call services and approve expenditures up to $50,000 per bid number per vendor through the end of fiscal year 2024, while not exceeding the total contractual services approved budget in each fiscal year for the following vendors. As this is in the best interest of the town. Cronenberg and Sons Restoration of Middletown, Connecticut, Civitella Masonry Incorporated of Newington, Connecticut, Merrick Masonry of Newington, Connecticut, Mystic Air Quality Consultants Incorporated of Groton, Eagle Environmental Incorporated of Terryville, Connecticut, EnviroPlan LLC of West Hartford, Connecticut, and then Envirom Services Incorporated of Meriden.
All right, thank you. Second. Second.
I'll second that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's all right, that's all right. Okay, we're, if there's no other comments or questions, we'll go ahead and vote on this motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6 is for something similar for on-call facilities for all the services listed here on the agenda item. I am going to ask Corporation Council to save Mr. Pennis some time, whether it's okay for him to read the motion, but not read almost a page of all the vendors listed here. Can you make reference to that?
Sure, he
Maybe
can
that's
make
happening.
reference to the names of the vendors as printed in the agenda, and the minutes will reflect those vendors.
Thank you. So this is pretty much the same, but different type of services, including architectural, carpentry, door
Okay.
hardware, electrical, etc.
Is what you're just gonna say, names of the.
Okay, appreciate that, Roche and council, so we don't need to read all that. Although Charlie really was looking forward to that, but, so you kind of disappointed him tonight, but that's okay.
What-
He'll get over it.
We're
Um,
fine with it. We'll wait here.
You ready for the motion?
The move, yeah, ready for the motion. We're ready.
Move to extend bid number 2022-16 through 24 for on-call services and improve expenditures up to $50,000 per bid number per vendor through the end of the year 2024, while not exceeding the total contractual services budget in the fiscal year to the following vendors.
Names. of-
Names of the vendors are listed in this motion. And we'll- This is the best wishes of the town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second on that?
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote on the motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. That's
Thank
it,
you,
only
Dan.
6? Well, we're just getting started here. And Roche is like, oh, I'm on vacation. What am I doing? All right, Roche. Take it away, yeah. Don't get too excited about that. Hopefully we will. Go ahead, Roche.
I even have more good news. I have no update for you.
Yeah, it's vacation. You don't got anything, right?
No report, you're on vacation. Yeah, right.
I mean, I could keep talking, but maybe I'll
That's all
pass
right.
today.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's all right.
We'll talk to you when you get back. It's okay, yeah. No.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you have anything for us?
No, I don't.
Nothing?
Okay.
Nope,
You have nothing?
I have
Sounds
nothing.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Shocking.
next.
nothing
I-
substantial.
I do have one just quick question under your report. Sorry, real quick.
Sure.
I saw some emails about the Berlin Housing Authority, and perhaps our council could answer that, that it looked like there was some commitment letter on the funding, the 34 million. Is that correct?
Yesterday, I received a call from the Housing Authorities Council advising that they'd been working with Wells Fargo Statutory Trust on providing us with a legitimate term sheet, which we had not previously been provided with. And today, this morning, I did receive it. It's a term sheet. It's been signed by the Housing Authority chair. So now what happens is the due diligence that needs to take place on both the lender side and the borrower side needs to commence. So that'll be quite a while.
All right, well, I
Not
guess,
much in anything.
I guess that is project. I mean, it's progress. That
Yes.
is,
Yes, it is progress.
maybe it's a late Easter miracle or something, but
Tap dancing yet.
well, we'll see when it gets through the whole.
It's a good first step.
Yeah, that's good. No, I appreciate that, Jeff, and it was good to see that. That's what it was, and that's great. We've been waiting on that, so good. Okay, so that's it for that. Special committee reports, there are none. Mentioned our joint meeting already. Counselor Communications, what do we got? Anything, folks? Anything? I just want to mention tomorrow, actually, at the senior center, Tina had planned, because we always try and speak to the seniors about the budget. So a lot of some folks did make it to our public hearing on March 28th, but some don't. So Tina was going to play that recording, but I guess the audio was not that great. And then we were just, a couple of us were going to go, myself and Sal, and I believe Julia. We told Julia and Brian Benigni, you're all welcome to, of course, obviously. But now she wasn't going to play that because of the audio. So I'm going to try and be there tomorrow at the senior center between 1 and 2. Going to make a very brief overview of the budget. Sal will do it, like he did in his meeting, and Julia, whatever she wants to say about the Board of Ed. And myself will say a couple of things. That's it. And then really kind of questions for the seniors. That's really why we were going to follow the video, but because it didn't work out, we'll just do a very brief presentation. And if whoever's there, if they have questions, we'll just answer those. That's tomorrow between 1 and 2 at the senior center, and that it's kind of just developed over. the last few
Recording in
months.
progress.
So, that's that. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of it. And that's it that I have. So we're good. Okay, we'll close that and we'll go to our acceptance of the April 4th minutes. We'll take a motion on that.
I move we accept the minutes of April 4th meeting as presented.
Thank you. Second on that.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so moved. And that leads us to our last bit of business, a motion to adjourn.
You got it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone stay longer? No. All right, so
You.
moved. All right,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks-
Have a good
thanks,
night.
Roche.
Enjoy your
Thanks. See
holiday.
you, Donna.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye, Donna.
Sorry.
Thank you, John. Sure. Thank you, Kate. Yeah, it's a big holiday, one big holiday. Have a good night, folks.